Started recording. Okay, perfect. Hey, welcome everybody. It's Sally Elatta here. I'm very excited to host all of you in this webinar on how are we going to enable enterprise business agility. So thank you for attending. It looks like we've got some cool folks from all around the world. So thank you for making time. Quick introduction, who am I? I am Sally Elatta. I was born in Sudan. I'm the CEO of Agile Transformation, started the company about 10 years ago. Also founder of AgilityHealth. AgilityHealth is our continuous improvement and founder of EBA, the EBA model that I'm going to share with you today, the Enterprise Business Agility Model and the 7 pillars. I do a lot of work with executives, helping them develop a strategy for their transformation. I'm a very proud mother, public speaker, and entrepreneur. At Agile Transformation, we're known for our business agility model, AgilityHealth. We also have agilevideos.com. I know many of you guys have watched some of those videos. And as I mentioned, I'm originally from Sudan in Africa. I was actually there last week. Just got back, so I still have a little bit of jet lag. And these are my beautiful 3 children. So again, thank you for joining me on this webinar. So the topic that I'm going to go through today is around business agility. And I thought before I just jump into what is business agility, it'll be very helpful for me to take you through the journey that we've been seeing customers go through. And I hope that this is relevant to you. So sort of let's go through this journey. And it's the transformation journey that we originally would just call an agile transformation journey. But as you see this journey continue, you'll see that we're moving beyond that conversation. So the very first step is what we call team agility. The goal of the transformation was team agility. How do we get high-performing teams? And so this is where Scrum, Kanban, this is where we all fell in love with agile methods, as we should. And we started to implement Scrum for teams. We started to learn about Kanban and continuous improvement for teams that don't need to sprint, for example. We realized that we need to move away from project teams that we keep putting together and dismantling and keeping teams stable. So we realized the importance of shifting to, some people call them intact team, stable team. We also started to invest in Agile tooling. So you might have Jira, you might have Rally version 1, Agile Central, VSO. We started to realize that where are we going to store our stories, our features? Where's our backlog going to go? How do I see my burn-up chart? How do I measure my release and all of that? So, and then the other thing that we did is we invested in co-location, or we invested in virtual collaboration. So if we have virtual distributed teams, we started to figure out how do we get them to work together as if they're sitting next to each other. And if we do have co-located teams, which is awesome, how do you create that engaging workspace? So a lot of companies, and still investing in moving people around, creating team collaboration spaces, and all of that. So that whole kind of area is really a focus on what we call team agility. And I would say that we, as a community, kind of stayed here, and companies stay here for like 2-3 years. And some organizations, and as a community, we've been here for a while, but the focus really is around how do I get my teams to be high performing? So then what happened after that? Well, that's cool. We got 5, 10, 20, 50 teams to start doing Agile. The problem that happened thereafter became team of team agility. Team of team agility, the problem that we ran into is, hey, how do I get all those teams, those 5 to 10 teams, or those 50 teams to deliver on a common goal together? How are they going to do release management? How are they going to plan? We started to realize that there were too many dependencies across the teams, and the teams were not coming together to plan together, to manage those dependencies, to break down the work, to cut down the silos. And so what happened in the team of team agility space is the beginning of our conversation around scaling Agile. This was sort of the birth of SAFe, Scaled Agile, and other scaling methods. This is also where DevOps became important. Let me pause and ask you guys, why do you think DevOps became important? Now that I need multiple teams to come together and deliver on a common product, a common vision, why are we all starting to move to DevOps? Go ahead and chat with me. Give me some ideas of why do you think at this level DevOps became important? We know why scaling Agile and SAFe became interesting, because we have to plan together, we have to figure out dependencies. But what was the motivation and driver behind DevOps? Avoid bottlenecks, Yes, Mary. What else? Better coordination across teams, much faster delivery pace, right? Speed to market, higher quality, guys, right? Continuous integration. There you go. Improve process, automation, break the silos. How am I going to get your code, your code, your code to actually all integrate together, to all work with each other and not have conflicts and release? Automation, right? We can't do manual build, manual testing when I've got 5 to 10 teams that are all working on a common code branch. So DevOps became important, and I think that many of you guys are probably investing in both how are we scaling Agile, whether you're using scaled Agile or any of the other scaling methods, how are we maturing our teams on DevOps? So now here's my trick question, leadership and culture. So now that I've got multiple teams kind of moving towards a common goal, I've helped them plan together, I've figured out the technical agility and the test and the automation and the build and the continuous integration. Why do you think we should start addressing leadership, the role of the managers? Why is that important at this team of team agility space? Lisa, to create alignment. Yep. Cohesion. What do you think we want to shift them from and to? Yeah, unfreeze the frozen middle. Change management. We have to help managers stay out of the way, because here's the problem. Our traditional management method is really around being very directive, telling the team what to do. I would say it's very tactical. It's kind of removing day-to-day obstacles and impediments. It's moving people around. Some of our one-on-one meetings that we have are all about the task management. What are you working on right now? What do I need to shift you on? With Agile comes this whole self-organization. Teams are going to figure out what they need to do. And I just need you as a manager now to, one, shift from command and control to more enablement and empowerment, enable autonomy for those teams. I want you to focus on removing obstacles for those teams. And I want you to focus on developing talent. So owning some of these communities of practice, doing skills assessments, finding out where we have skill gaps. Now, as I tell you this, I'll also share that not a lot of companies are investing in this. They know that it's a gap, but it's an area that does need some attention. So let's move on to the next level of maturity, which is what we call organizational agility. And many of our enterprise customers are here today. A lot of the very, very large corporations that we work with all the time right now, very large banks, financial, insurance, all of them, are struggling with portfolio management. So we've got team level agility, we have team of team agility, and then we have portfolio agility. Portfolio agility is how are we planning at the enterprise level, right? How are we aligning across multiple portfolios? What we realize after looking at so many of these leaders and organizations and seeing how they plan today is it's very painful. Let me just put it that way. It's very painful. There are a lot of portfolios that generate demand, they generate outcomes, they've got large initiatives, they've got big strategic projects that they want to get done. And there are delivery portfolios. So I like to kind of talk about demand portfolios and delivery portfolios. And those delivery portfolios, those delivery work streams are shared, and they have competing priorities that are coming to them, and they don't know who to prioritize because every portfolio comes to you and tells you they're number one and their initiative is number one. And so what we've created without meaning to is just teams that are multitasking, teams that are not able to focus on getting anything done. And so this whole concept of enterprise planning and aligning demand to capacity and figuring out how to do that on a quarterly basis is really what lean portfolio management is around. The other big aha in lean portfolio management, in addition to the quarterly planning, is moving away from focusing on work and aligning everything around work into outcomes. So we call it shifting from output to outcomes. What is it that you were hoping to accomplish? Business team, business leader, tell me what were the outcomes, and we'll talk a little bit about that through the seminar. We use the format called an OKR, objective and key results, but what's the business outcome? Tell me, how will we measure the value of the work that we're getting done? And then enable the delivery portfolios and the teams to figure out what features and stories. What we see today is that the demand portfolios and the business leaders, and I don't think it's their fault, I think it's just kind of the process that we've created with Agile, unfortunately, is the teams have become feature factories. they have large backlogs of just unbelievable number of features. And if you actually ask them if those features are valuable or not, I don't think anybody could really tell you, because we don't have time to measure value. We are so focused now on just getting features done and stories done that teams are burning out and we're not making the business impact. So I know I spoke too much about this, but I can't tell you how important lean portfolio management is right now. And it's a common thread across many of our large enterprise customers, and it's become a core focus for us right now. The next area of maturity under org agility is value stream team design. So what I'm talking about here is, it's awesome that we've grouped teams into programs or into trains or into, if you guys call them tribes, whatever terminology you use for your teams. So organizations are pausing now and saying, look, what are our value streams? What are we trying to optimize for? Where do we want to flow value? So now that we have implemented lean portfolio management and we understand that these are the business outcomes that we're trying to accomplish, how can I organize my teams and organize my trains so that I can maximize the flow of that value and reduce the dependency and the reliance cross-train, cross-team, cross-portfolio to get anything to done? So redesigning now when I say redesigning organizations around value streams, I'm not talking about a physical redesign. I'm not talking about changing reporting structures. Unfortunately, that's actually one of the biggest problems that I see today is organizational design is all about reporting structure. So all of the teams that report to me are going to be in my trains or in my programs, all of the teams that report to you. The problem is, in order for us to get an outcome done, I might need your teams, my teams, a marketing team, a business team, a technical team, a back-end team, and a front-end team to all work together. So think about what we're saying here is, how do we create virtual organizations that have nothing to do with who reports to who, that are aligned around delivering business outcomes as quickly as possible? So what we're talking about is maximizing flow of value. The last thing I'll talk about here for lean product maturity is a gap that I'm seeing in a lot of organizations, which is the lack of product maturity. Companies are used to project management. They're used to just starting a project, ending a project, starting a project, ending a project. The idea that we actually have products, and even looking at your services, even if you don't have products, I know some of you are thinking, oh, we're a service company. We file claims, we process claims. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, if you're an HR department and you offer HR services, trust me, you have a product and you have customers. Think of it from that perspective. How do you have a vision for the product? How do you have a roadmap for it? How do you clarify the difference between a product owner at the team level and what their role is versus a product manager who's at the team level versus a portfolio owner who's at the portfolio, the third layer? Who's responsible for what? What skills do I need in these individuals? Who needs to be more strategic? Who needs to be more tactical from a role and responsibility perspective? How do I get my whole product management layer to mature and learn how to do product discovery? Do discovery before delivery. A big problem we're seeing today is ideas are not discovered, they're not validated, they're immediately sent to the team for execution, which is actually what's causing these large backlogs, because those ideas have not been validated. And so if you've read any of the books that are talking about product discovery, discover to deliver, or how do you do lean product discovery, it's all around staying ahead of the teams, being 1 quarter or 1 PI ahead of the delivery teams and doing discovery, very rapid discovery, so that what the teams are working on has actually been validated by the customers. And it could be simple prototypes. It could be, getting some beta customers to give you feedback if they would even use something that looked like that. So lean product maturity, if I had to summarize it, is really around formalizing the roles for product management, maturing the competencies around product management, being more outcome driven in what we do, and introducing lean product discovery. So let me just pause over here, because I know this is a lot that we've just talked about over here. Have you guys had where do you think you're at? So look at your company right now, and where do you think you've invested the most? Do you think that you are focused right now in investing in team agility? Do you think that your current focus and what you're investing in is team of team? Or do you think your company and your biggest problem right now is organizational agility? So give me some quick feedback. Let me know where you think you're at right now. organizational agility, moving from team agility to organizational agility. Another one saying organizational, challenges around organizational agility, love it. Starting team of team agility. Okay, great. Trying to move to product-based organizations. Okay, great. So you're moving into org agility. All right, so I see several that are team of team, but I see the majority, at least here, are really focused on organizational agility. And I will tell you that that echoes what I'm seeing in the industry right now. And for those of you listening and attending this webinar, I think that that's where our biggest bang for the buck is, honestly. Now, here's the problem. Even if you shift and start focusing to organizational agility, you have to double down on the other ones, because I've actually seen companies where their investment in team agility started to go back. It started to be reversed because they didn't continue coaching the teams. They didn't continue assessing the health of those teams. And so unfortunately, this is all additive. So you won't be able to do organizational agility without stabilizing the team of team investment and the team agility. So I'm going to fast forward you to the future. This is your crystal ball of, okay, now that you're done with organizational agility and you've really matured around lean portfolio management and value stream structure, what's going to be next for you? Well, this is where talent development. Why do you guys think talent development is important? Think about this. You just moved people around. You just created a new organizational structure that's virtual, that's around outcomes. You've probably created a whole bunch of new roles that didn't exist before. You got to get HR involved now. HR has to have a seat at the table, if not help lead this transformation, because talent development, recruiting, hiring, compensation, all of that, HR agility is going to be absolutely needed. Innovation, now that we are truly aligned around business outcomes, customer seat at the table is going to be critical. We want to hear the voice of our customer. We want to know what is it that they want us to do. And quite frankly, we want to stay ahead of our customer. We want to anticipate their needs. We're going to move away from that very reactive, what do you want me to build for you next kind of mode, into being ahead of the market, anticipating the market's needs, and starting to be proactive about being innovative and building things based on understanding the right problem. What I love, Marty Kagan talks about the biggest problem with product development is that we fall in love with our solution. We don't fall in love with the problem. And so part of innovation is really listening to what the market's really looking for, understanding the problem before you just jump into and come up with the multi-million-dollar solution you're going to build. In this area where true business agility is going to happen, you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, should sales teams, marketing teams, audit, legal, finance, should they adopt agile practices? Yes, of course they should. And so when you're in organizational agility mode, you're going to see that they're going to start to what I call experiment with agile and experiment with agility. But when we get to this level 4 of maturity, it's no longer optional. I can't have legal still using very old traditional processes. Audit can't still say, hey, fill out the 50-page form. Sales can't sell something irresponsibly without, you know, working with the product development teams to make sure that we can actually deliver on it. This is really about enterprise agility. This is not even about Agile and Scrum. So I want you to get away from this, oh, I want to make sure my HR team does daily stand-ups and has a Kanban board. That's cool, right? That's great. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about enterprise agility. We're talking about full alignment. We're talking about leaning out all of our processes. We're talking about having business and technology teams come together to achieve outcomes without looking at their organizational boundaries, right? Breaking those silos, not having a us versus them, not having a we're tech, your business. Like all of that needs to start getting broken here, because that's how we're going to achieve business agility. And so at the end of this journey, we really do achieve business agility. But in that, when we arrive there, you don't really arrive. This becomes a journey of continuous learning and improvement, continuous growth. It's not considered a transformation anymore, because as an organization, you've become a learning organization. You're continuously, every quarter, inspecting, adapting, learning, improving. You're anticipating your customers' needs. You're staying ahead of the market. And the most important thing is to sustain the culture and that whole journey that I just walked you through. At the very bottom over here, what I have for you, obviously, AgilityHealth is our platform. And so we're very concerned about measurements and metrics. And we believe that this entire journey should be enabled through measurements and metrics. Otherwise, it's going to be very gut-feely. And so measuring what matters. At the team level, we like to measure 3 metrics that matter, which is the team's performance, which is their output. This is what everybody focuses on today, which is, how many features did they release? How often do they release? What's their defect rate? What's their MTTR, mean time to recover? Great, those are all awesome. And that's what we call performance. And that's very output oriented. We do want to measure the team's maturity. So this is how healthy is the team. And those are the practices and behaviors that those teams have. And you'll see that in our team health radar. But we also want to measure outcomes. And so we want to align all of our teams in our organizations to OKRs and outcomes every quarter. And we want to measure from those outcomes and OKRs, which ones did we actually accomplish? And are we actually achieving business value? So from a team level, that's the kind of data that we collect in AgilityHealth and we try to roll up. At the enterprise level, there are 3 metrics that everything kind of rolls up to, which is, have we improved flow? And flow is speed time to market, it's reducing dependencies, it's how frequently we deliver. Are we getting things as quickly as possible? Are we enabling that flow of value? The second metric is value, and value is really around business outcomes. Are we achieving those goals? The other 2 metrics that we have under value is customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. So we really believe that in this journey of business agility, if your customers are happy, if your employees are happy, and if you're achieving your business outcomes, that's value for you. And then there's quality, right? So flow, value, quality. And quality obviously is measured with a lot of different things, but test automation, defects, customers being happy with your quality and production, the level of automation that you have. So when somebody says, when I arrive at the end of this journey, what am I going to accomplish? How am I going to measure my success? You really will look at flow, value, quality, and make sure that you have healthy and happy teams. So now let's go into what's the definition of business agility. So business agility really is the ability to adapt to change. We want to create these organizations that are nimble. They can sort of move with the flow. When the industry's changing and there's new demands, we don't want you to be stuck. We want you to be able to very quickly change your product, change your vision, conquer a new market, and be nimble. We want you as an organization to learn and pivot. Learn and pivot means don't just assume that you know what the world needs and what your customers need. You need to every quarter listen to the voice of the market and the customer, inspect, adapt, pivot, change your strategy if it's not working for you. Deliver at speed, so deliver as quickly as possible, but obviously with high quality. And instead of survive in a competitive market, I love that Evan Laybourne, so Evan's the founder of the Business Agility Institute, he really called it thrive in a competitive market. So you actually feed off of this competition. Now, why do we need to start moving in this direction? Because gone are the days where large enterprises are eating, the big companies are eating the small. Today, fast and nimble companies and startups are the ones that are winning the race, and they're the ones that are eating the slow. So your ability to learn, deliver quickly, really could be your competitive advantage. So let me pause here and kind of re-engage everybody. Now that I've kind of helped you understand the journey, and now that we've talked about what business agility really is, think about your own organization or the customer that you work for right now. What do you think are the top challenges getting in their way of achieving business agility and executing on those? Remember those big outcomes, those top strategic initiatives that they want to conquer the market and be competitive. What's getting in the way? Go ahead, take about 30 seconds and start brainstorming for me. What are the biggest impediments to enterprise agility and actually achieving and executing on our strategy? Alignment between business and engineering, strategic funding, org structure, going back to waterfall. There's no common definition of agile and agility. The lack of product maturity, lack of knowledge on agile. Top management and executives don't understand. Business engagement, customer engagement. Aligning, Margaret says, how are we aligning people around outcomes? We have PMOs that are still preferring waterfall and traditional project management. Mindset, Maria says mindset, that's a really good one too. The org structure, executive sponsorship and leadership. So executives themselves don't understand what we're talking about. Lack of limiting work in progress. And Agile has just become a buzzword, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Okay, great. Performance management, that's a good one from HR. So performance management in HR is still very traditional, and it's very goal-oriented, and it kind of rewards heroes, individuals, as opposed to teams. Perfect. Awesome. So the problems that we're trying to solve, you guys have already kind of mentioned many of them, so I'm not going to go through each single one of them, but ineffective team design, slow time to market, competing priorities, we don't discover before we deliver, so much focus on output, not outcomes, very painful enterprise planning, demand and capacity are not aligned, we have feature factories, the tech team, technology is adopting Agile, they're sprinting, the rest of the org is stuck. The whole, somebody brought this up, is tech versus business team, you know. Leaders are still commanding and controlling, top-down leadership. Limited voice of the customer, you guys already mentioned that. Our metrics are the wrong metrics. We're not measuring what actually matters. And teams are not empowered to solve the problem. I think I actually had a leader ask, you know, give me feedback and say, why do I need them to know what the problem is? Why don't they just implement the solution that I gave them? And I like had to pause. I didn't even know how to answer that question. Teams are very intelligent. You have very intelligent people working for you that if they knew what problem you're trying to solve and for which customers, they would probably solve it in better ways than we understand. And teams are not aligned to business outcomes. Today, teams are just focused on features, stories, and getting work done. We're not sharing with them what the outcomes are that we're trying to accomplish. So what did we do? This exercise that I just did with you, and asking, I've done it with executives many, many times, because we provide this seminar to lots of senior leaders and executives, and we always have them kind of brainstorm on Post-it notes, what are the problems that you're trying to solve? And as you know, in any Agile retrospective or brainstorming, we collect the Post-it notes and we kind of put them together into categories. And what we started to realize after doing this many, 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 many times is that the challenges are very similar across all these companies. And this is where this EBA model and the 7 pillars was born from. So I'm going to walk you through the 7 pillars so that you can understand what do executives need to think about and consider if they want to transform to enterprise business agility. Where are they going to need to invest? That's the objective of this model, is to say, hey, don't forget this area because it's part of your challenge. So the very first pillar is called customer seat at the table. And by the way, I mean, I can go to the website, but it's agilityhealthradar.com/EBA. You'll see a bigger picture of this model. But customer seat at the table is really around the voice of the customer. It's about maturing product management. It's about maturing lean product and lean startup, understanding your customers and knowing their persona, beginning to insert the discovery before you deliver process, and then having customer focus and engagement. So those are the 3 capabilities that you will have to build within your organization to mature in this pillar called customer seat at the table. Lean portfolio management is being very clear with what are my 3-year and 1-year outcomes? How can I break that down into quarterly outcomes and OKRs? And how can I start planning every quarter and aligning all of my teams around my quarterly outcomes? And then the last capability that you'll need to build here is funding and governance. So we're going to have to move away from project-based funding into more stable team and capacity-based funding, and really measuring the value of the outcomes that we're giving those organizations. Think of every portfolio as what I call a mini startup, is the way I kind of coach my portfolio leaders. Is your portfolio is going to own a P&L. You have outcomes you need to deliver, and you're like a startup. So I need to know, what am I investing in? It's not just project by project, but what is your capacity? We're going to fund the stable capacity, and then just keep working on the highest value outcomes that you can accomplish for me. Org structure and design, many of you guys mentioned this. So the org structure and design is, who are the teams and who needs to work together to accomplish outcomes, regardless of reporting structure. The next capability is role agility. Trust me, there are a lot of new roles. There is the product manager, the product owner, the portfolio leader. There's an RTE role or program manager. There's a portfolio manager role that acts differently than traditional portfolio. You've got the PO role. We have tech leads and solution leads and architects. We have even existing roles, we have them, we're working in a different way today. So the role of the manager is very significantly different than the traditional role of the manager. So sitting there and kind of making sure that we've designed the roles the right way and we figured out a change management plan and how are we going to assess each role based on the competencies for that role, how are we going to help them improve and grow, that's a whole focus area. And then enablement teams is really around building communities of practice and building enablement team. And they're two different. So I know a lot of you are probably familiar with COPs and communities of practice. A community of practice is where it's usually around a role, such as the product owner COP or the Scrum Master COP. I've also seen communities of practice around a discipline. So the test automation COP or the Agile COP. And a lot of those communities of practice, their goal is to educate, to do knowledge sharing, to inspire a community, to bring them together so they can discuss what's going on, what are the challenges that they have. There's a lot of mentorship and coaching that happens in a COP, which is awesome. An enablement team is different. I want you to think of an enablement team as a team that actually has a backlog of work needs to get done. The customers of those teams are the other teams that they are reskilling. So an Agile enablement team or a DevOps enablement team or a CX enablement team, their job is to teach the other teams that skill set. It's to enable those teams with this new skill. And so you will have enablement teams that have actual coaches in there, they actually have a backlog, and they are distributed across the teams to bring up and lift up their skills. All right, let's go to our next pillar, which is the Agile framework and mindset. This is where we've invested. I mean, when you look at these 7 pillars that I'm going to walk you through, you're going to clearly see where you've already invested a lot of time. And I would say that as an industry, we've invested a lot in the Agile framework and mindset. We have brought in Scrum and Kanban to our technology teams. Check, great. We have brought in scaling methods. How are we going to plan across multiple teams? The most popular method that almost all of our enterprises uses is the SAFe method, Scaled Agile. There are other methods out there. Agile for business teams, and so this is the beginning of teaching Agile marketing, Agile for sales, Agile for HR, Agile for finance. Yes, Agile can apply to you. It looks a little bit different. I have claims departments that are using Agile at some of the Blues. But this is all around taking these Agile practices and implementing it within every team. Here's the big one that's missing, right? Leadership and culture. How do we get leaders at the highest level to define a new leadership model that enables this new way of working? I've worked with some really large banks, and I'm very proud of them because the first thing that they did is the CEO and the head of HR invested in identifying what are the new leadership behaviors that we all have to align behind and move away from. How are we going to build autonomous team if everyone in our company wants to command and control their way through everything? How are you going to unleash the power of teams if you still have that very dictating, I tell you what to do, do as I say mentality? So, and it has to start from the top. I've been rejecting doing any workshops in our company where they tell me, oh, just teach this to the manager layer. I'm like, no, you got to get your executives to buy into this, because every manager or every director group that we will teach leadership agility to, they'll say, well, the people above me don't act this way, and so how do you expect me to act this way? They're all command and control. So leadership agility is fundamental to this transformation. Transitioning the role of managers. The reason we put this as a separate capability in itself is because we haven't focused on it, and it's created the frozen middle. So we call the middle management the frozen middle, but that's not right, and it's not fair, because in this Agile transformation movement, we focus on executives and leaders, we have re-enabled the teams and taught them, and we have left out the role of the managers. And so we need a change management plan. We should re-educate managers, give them the new competencies, help them focus on coaching and developing people. I also think that managers, in our management workshop, managers can transition to other roles. There are a lot of other adjacent roles. Not every manager wants to be a people manager. Some managers are great at program management. Some of them are great at being a product owner. Some managers might want to move into being an architect because they really do like solving the problems themselves. So there's a lot of work to be done in this little box. Think of each one of those boxes like a big epic. It's a capability that needs to be built. And then obviously culture. How do we create a culture that welcomes change? A lot of the banks and the financial institutions that we work with have a fear of change. They have sort of a culture of perfectionism, a culture of don't make a mistake. The problem is that kind of goes against the whole innovation, learn, pivot, inspect, and adapt. So how do we not look at failure and look at it as more learning as we go through this? The sixth pillar is called Make It Stick. We actually added this pillar about a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, because we realized that sometimes after we're helping an organization, we're walking away, that the organization's starting to revert back to form again. They're slowly moving back. And so we're like, what were the keys there? Like, what's missing? And what's missing is that every company has to invest in building internal change agents. And those change agents could be Agile coaches, they could be DevOps coaches, it could be product coaches, it could be leadership and cultural coaches, and also business agility strategists. So EBA strategists. You can't only depend on outside consulting companies, even though you are going to need outside consulting companies for this journey. You'll need strong partners to help you. But at the end of the day, if you don't invest in your internal people, if you don't have internal leaders, managers, coaches, directors, VPs that are learning this, that are sustaining it, it's going to be reversed. And I've watched it and I've seen it happen. And all you need is 2 or 3 new executives that join the company that don't understand any of this. And it goes right back to what it was before. Continuous measurement and growth is the whole reason why we built AgilityHealth, you guys. We honestly, leading so many of these transformations, we felt guilty for leaving and not leaving behind a way for teams and organizations to continuously measure on the right competencies. Are we moving in the right direction? Are we healthy? Where do we need to improve? You can't improve what you can't measure if you don't know where you are today. And so the whole DevOps radar, the team health radar, the role-based assessments that we built, it's just a way to say, guys, are we aligned that this is what good looks like? This is the definition of DevOps for us. And are we okay that all of us in a consistent way are going to start to measure against this and move in the same direction? How do we row the boat in a common direction if we have no common definition? That's the problem we were trying to solve with this. And so continuous measurement and growth is really around making sure we're consistently moving. Agile talent development, and we've put a lot of effort into this lately with our friends at IC Agile. So I was a contributor to the new IC Agile talent development track, which is bringing HR to the table now, right? Educating our HR partners in what is the new role of HR? How are you going to enable HR agility? The learning objectives that are there are all around the new org structure and org design, leadership agility, the new roles, a lot of the stuff that we talked about. How are we going to hire? What about performance management? What about salaries? What about aligning teams and rewarding around outcomes? There's so much there that needs to change. And I predict that in the next 3 years, that's going to be the biggest disruption is to HR. I think just like Agile fundamentally changed how technology works, I think you'll see that HR will fundamentally change. Finance is going to fundamentally have to be impacted. The last pillar is technology agility. And technology agility is and I put this as the foundation pillar, kind of is at the bottom, because all the stuff that you do on the top, if you're sitting on a really bad architecture, and if you can't even touch anything on your code because it could break apart, right? Because you've got systems that are just so volatile. Moving to the cloud, adopting DevOps, teaching technical practices like test-driven development or automation, having developers peer program together, all of those technical practices, that new modern architectures that are scalable, using service-oriented design, it's a must-have, right? It's the foundation, because you can do all that stuff on top, but if your house is built on the wrong foundation, it's not going to scale. So those are the 7 pillars of EBA. And I don't want you to be overwhelmed by them. I want you to understand that the reason we put them into one picture is because we needed executives and leaders to understand you have to invest in these. You have to think about them. Each one of them is critical to your business agility journey. And thinking that just because you've invested in Agile alone, that you've arrived, it's not going to work. It's going to be reversed. Many companies today have said they've invested in Agile transformations for multiple years and millions of dollars, and they're still not seeing the business impact. that they were hoping to accomplish. Well, why? Because it's not just about Scrum. It's not just about Kanban. There's a lot more to enterprise agility and business agility than just adopting one or two methods. It's a very holistic strategy that you have to have. So that is what EBA is. It is really a strategy model. It just enables in one picture for senior leaders and executives to develop, what's our strategy? What are we going to focus on right now? And you can't go do all of this right away, right? You can't do all of it right away. So what we normally recommend is you start, lost audio. Can you guys still hear me? Somebody said that I lost audio. You can hear me? Okay, perfect, thank you. Where we like to start is to do, first of all, this seminar. So thank you for coming and attending and listening, because everything starts with education, right? You have to understand what enterprise business agility is. You have to kind of take a step back and figure out, like, gosh, there's a lot here. This is going to be a multi-year journey. Nope, it's not just going to happen in 1 year. This is a multi-year journey. Where have we already invested? So I'm sure as you look at these boxes, you could probably be like, well, we kind of did something here. We did something there. We've looked here. And that's why I like to say, start with a baseline assessment. Obviously, we have a radar that measures enterprise business agility, but start with a baseline assessment to say, where are we today? And then have a strategy session. And the strategy session needs to be with all of the right leaders, a very cross-functional group of transformation leaders. It needs to have HR, it needs to have finance, it needs to have your business partners, it needs to have your technology partners come together to say, where is it that we want to be by the end of this year, or maybe 2 years from now, right? So kind of create a 2-year vision, a 1-year outcome, and then break that into quarterly chunks. So for the next quarter, in order for me to achieve the following outcomes by end of year, I'll give you a real example. So we work with some companies right now, very large financial companies, and they have to mature enterprise planning, right? It's so painful. And they have to mature their organizational structure and redesign around value stream. Those two are the top 2 outcomes that they need to accomplish by end of year. But again, this is a complex problem because there's multiple portfolios that need to focus on that. So now we're going to say, okay, well, which portfolios need to be enabled with this? And what are we going to do every quarter to start focusing on some of these pillars, right? And focusing on that for this year, while injecting some of the measurement and growth as we go through all of this, and injecting some of the leadership and culture that's needed to enable that. So every company needs to do a baseline assessment to see where they are. They need to come up with a vision of where do they want to be in the next year or 2 years. Again, this is still a multi-year journey. And then break that vision down into quarterly outcomes and figure out which one of those capabilities do they want to invest in for each portfolio. So each one of those pillars has an objective or a guiding principle. So for example, customer seat at the table, what's the objective? What are we trying to solve there? Well, we want to build the right product, right? So this very first guiding principle, which is building the right product, maturing portfolio and product teams, engaging, doing opportunity assessment, and doing discovery before we deliver, that's what we're hoping to accomplish. In lean portfolio management, our objective is to align teams to outcomes. We want to start to move away from output, and we want to make sure we're really focusing on outcomes. And we want to reduce the high work in progress and the feature factory that we've got right now. For org design, for that third pillar, what we're trying to do is design virtual organizations that can enable the flow of value and outcomes. And we want to start breaking dependencies, and we want to really fix all of the roles that we've got and enable the role agility. For the Agile pillar, we want to enable Agile and lean mindset across the whole enterprise, not just for technology teams. We want to take these awesome practices, whether it's the daily stand-up meeting or having a visual wall, or demoing your work that you got done. All these are great practices that apply to any kind of work. This is not just about technology work. For leadership and culture, what's our objective and guiding principle? We really want to and need to transform leaders at every level of the organization into moving into new modern ways of working, enabling autonomy. The whole command and control, you guys, is so old school. I can't even tell you. Like, it's really traditional now. And the problem is, if you continue with that way of command and control and dictating and telling people what to do, you're going to miss a lot of the new, the modern, the young crowd that's just not going to tolerate that anymore. So, the new workforce is looking for a new way of working, and it's about engagement. It's about unleashing their thoughts, their ideas, their creativity. And so the very traditional management style, which is I know better than you, I tell you what to do, I'm not listening to you, is very immature leadership. So we got to invest in leaders. Enabling organizations to make it stick. So our make it stick pillar is really around building internal change agents, sustaining the culture and transforming HR. Technology agility, as we talked about, is moving to modern architecture, technical practices, and DevOps. And then finally, remember I mentioned to you value, flow, quality, and happiness. Those are the metrics that matter that we need to start measuring. So I know I've covered a lot here, and I know you're probably wondering, gosh, where do I start with this? So let me just quickly kind of show you some next steps and what is. So the definition of EBA, sorry, I missed this slide. So what is EBA? We've really defined the business agility model to provide strategy for senior leaders. I really want senior leaders to think about this and to figure out, where do I need to invest? If I invest in these areas, I'm going to accelerate my business agility transformation. It is non-prescriptive, so we don't have really great checklists for you to, do this here, do this here, do this here. We call it a pull-based model. So what we share is patterns. So a lot of organizations that have already been here, done that, here are the patterns that they have adopted. Pull-based means that it's not a top-down, everybody must do this. Really look, educate people, kind of like what you guys are doing right now. You're here, you're listening, you're learning. Educate people on what EBA is, and then enable each portfolio or each group or each line of business to say, you know what, I want in. These problems are problems that I actually have. And the senior leaders and the executives say, no, I'm signing up. I want to do this, because they're going to have to roll up their sleeve and be part of the transformation. Everything in EBA sits on top of Agile, Scrum, Kanban, and Scaled Agile. So nothing in EBA provides any detailed implementation at those levels. It really sits and it just assumes that you've already invested in Agile and Scrum and Scaled Agile, and that you're looking for just a strategy, right? From an executive perspective, business leaders and technology leaders, how do we define a strategy for this transformation? So within AgilityHealth and in our company, we basically, created the 7-pillar model. AgilityHealth has maturity assessments that I'll show you for each level. We have built the OKR and outcome alignment dashboard. We've built a lot of radars to develop talent. So we've built the product owner, the Scrum Master, the Agile coach, the manager, and also the growth portal, which enables people to learn on their own. And that's kind of been our investment to this world, is how do we enable you to accelerate your business agility transformation by giving you, and again, also through our partners. So we have a lot of strategy companies and firms that provide the implementation of enterprise business agility. I wanted to give you guys a glimpse in terms of measurement. So I've also talked about measuring what matters. So at the team level, so I really want you to think about measuring what matters at every level of the organization. At the team level, the team health radar is the one that we use, because it measures 5 different things. It says, as a team, do we have clarity on what's our vision and purpose? Do we have clarity on our plans and our roles? Do we perform? So there's performance questions and quantitative questions in there. Do we have the right leadership team leading us as a team? Do we have the right culture, and have we built the right foundation for agility? Are we cross-functional? Are we co-located? Are we virtual? Are we working at a sustainable pace? So the team health radar is sort of like that foundational radar, which could roll up across all of the various layers. At the team layer, we recommend that you assess DevOps. So you could say, across all of my trains, across all of my teams, what is my DevOps maturity right now, especially if that's a focus area for you. And so that's what the DevOps radar has. We've also built the Lean Product Health Radar. So the Lean Product Health Radar says, are we leading product leadership? Is that mature? Is product discovery mature? Is product delivery mature? And is the culture mature? Those are the 4 dimensions there. And then if you are adopting Scaled Agile, we're obviously very strong partners with SAFe. We have the Scaled Agile radars for the Agile release train as well here in the portfolio, and the other ones that they're developing right now. At the portfolio layer, I highly recommend that you just do the EBA assessment, which is those 7 pillars. Those 7 pillars we just went through for each portfolio. How are you doing? Did you invest in these areas? And then roll up that data to the enterprise. So where do we go from here? Before we start taking questions, I wanted to give you guys some cool, calls to action, things that you can do. Some of you might know about the Business Agility Conference that's coming up in New York. Evan Laybourne is awesome. He's the founder, and we've partnered with the Business Agility Conference and with Evan to build what we call the Business Agility Report. It's a global benchmark report for business agility. So Melinda will post this for you right now, but the Business Agility Benchmark Survey, go ahead and complete this assessment. This is not our 7 pillar, this is more of the global benchmark one, but fill out that survey. You'll see immediately at the end of it how you stack up to the others that have filled it out. And then you will also get a copy of this report that you can provide to your senior leaders and executives, and we'll be covering some of it in that Business Agility Conference as well. So, go ahead and fill that out or share it internally, and this will be the global benchmark report. The other thing that you can do is get certified, learn more. We have a 2-day and 3-day workshop for enterprise business agility strategists. Again, I really want to be clear because the level of conversation we're having over here is really around strategy and enterprise strategy. So make sure that the people that you're sending to this workshop are truly qualified for that conversation. It's going to be very hard for if somebody is a team level Agile coach to be able to provide the strategy for executives if they've never worked with executives before, for example. So the Enterprise Business Agility Strategy Workshop and Certifications, also IC Agile certified, and you'll find it in our schedule. And if all you want to do is maybe start running some of these assessments that we talked about, then you can become an AgilityHealth facilitator. And I definitely would love to see you at the Business Agility Conference, which is happening in March in New York City. You can go to the website for the Business Agility Institute. It happens once a year, and I think there's international versions of it happening everywhere. So let me pause and take questions. I do have a ton of other slides that I haven't covered here because I just have them in case you want me to jump to that topic of lean portfolio, customer seat at the table, or org design. So I'm going to pause. You put it in the Q&A section. I'll start answering some questions and I might jump to some of the other resources. Okay, you show me questions. And yes, Omar, we will be sharing the slide deck. You're going to get Melinda here Melinda and Emily both are going to be sending you guys an email with the this recording itself, and then access to download the slide deck. And like I mentioned to you, I have a ton of other cool slides. All right, what are some of the questions? Oh, all right, let me just kind of see them. So they don't want to hear from contractors, Scrum Masters, but only employees. So Nikita, I think it's not a question, but I think it's a comment that organizations are not getting feedback or listening to contractors. I do think that from an HR perspective, we're going to have to pause and think about this because when you have a team and you want to create a high-performing team, contractors versus employees are all part of the team. And so if you don't get them to provide input in their surveys, if you don't have them answer the team health assessment, which all of our customers do, have both contractors and employees, how are you going to improve? So yes, if that's an issue that you're facing, then I think it's something that you do need to look into because a team is a team and we want high-performing team regardless of how the person's getting paid. And so we do need their input, definitely. We've got a question over here. Could you please share which organizations are actually going through enterprise business agility transformation so it gives us understanding? Very large banks. I don't want to mention all their names over here, but there's a lot of very large banks. There's a lot of large retailers that are going through this. Vikram, I don't feel as comfortable mentioning all their names over here, but it is, it is definitely happening, and I think they're all pretty much noticing that it's something that's needed right now. Why is HR not in the org agility phase? Gabrielle asked that question. All of the ones that I put in that next phase, Gabrielle, which is sales, marketing, HR, finance, legal, we start to experiment with their transformation in org agility. So I want to be clear with that. So in the org agility phase, you are going to start. So I have a whole bunch of HR people coming to the HR workshops and learning, and they're experimenting and they're trying. So it's not that they're not in org agility, they are, but they're more in the experimenting, piloting, trying this out, being educated. That next phase is, it's all in. Like it's not negotiable anymore. It's not like, oh, hey, let me try it. No, sales, marketing, HR, finance, like they're going to have to really transform from a lean perspective to achieve agility. Another question was from Omar, can the radars be customized? Yes, the radars can be customized, and you can create your own custom radar as well. Obviously, if you stick with the radars that we've created with the questions, you'll be able to benchmark, right? Because we've like hundreds of customers that are using it. So if you use the benchmark radars, you'll be able to say, how analyze, my health and my performance against all these other companies. But in terms of if you want to create your own version, of course. The problem that we've seen with many organizations is they don't even know what Scrum is, but they jump immediately to scaling Agile. What do you think on this? That's why I kind of show it as a journey. I think that it's important to see that there are multiple steps in the journey, and each journey has a focus. And so if your goal is to mature at the team level, you're going to have to invest in team level agility, and that is Scrum and Kanban, and those are all both part of Scaled Agile. But if the problem that you're trying to solve is how am I going to get multiple teams to coordinate with each other, then yes, I do need to invest in learning how to scale, learning how to do PI planning or big room planning. I think instead of focusing on the buzzwords, I think we should focus on what problem we're trying to solve. What's the outcome that we're trying to achieve? Are we trying to solve a technical agility problem? Well, then let's adopt DevOps. Are we trying to solve a team of team problem? Are we trying to solve a team agility? Is it an organizational agility? And by the way, Scaled Agile in itself has implementation patterns at the team level, at the team of team level, and even at the portfolio level. So, I don't want you, because I put Scaled Agile in the team of team level, that doesn't mean that that's where it stays. That's where it was beginning to be adopted. But it obviously has Scrum and it has portfolio management as well. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this seminar. It's very important for me to get feedback. Feedback is a gift, so we're going to post over here for you a link to a survey so we can get your feedback. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope all of you guys have an amazing rest of the day and the rest of the week. And I've given you 4 minutes to spare, so thank you so much. Bye, everyone.